The police department got their first canine. Our speaker, Brian Woods, was selected to handle that dog. He attended Sheldon State Community College in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It's a 6-week school. And if you ask Brian, he'll tell you he loves Tuscaloosa, Alabama. No, sorry. 1991. He is selected to attend a canine instructor school. The instructor school was at Sheldon State Community College, and this time it was a 12-week school to become a trainer. In '93, he attended Tech Community and received an associate's degree in law enforcement canine instruction. There's only 8 trainers in the country with this degree. 8 trainers in the country with the degree that Brian has. In 1997, after 7 years of work, he was certified as a master trainer with NAPAWADA, which is North American Police Work Dog Association. It's an international recognized certifying body for police dog handlers and their dogs. Besides running his own training center in Fremont and training more than 404 police dogs throughout the United States, 3 handlers he has traveled out of the United States, Mexico, Canada, training and certifying canine teams. So without further ado, I'm going to apologize again about the microphone. We got him a wireless one, so hopefully it's going to sound better. Our speaker tonight, Mr. Brian Woods.
Thank you very much. Have a nice night. I think it should come down a little bit, maybe.
That's good.
Okay, George asked me to talk a little bit about how we started the canine unit in Fremont. His father, Chief Dorsey, hired me in '85, and like he said, in '89 we went down and got our first dog. Now, Tuscaloosa, Alabama was not my first choice. Okay, we had schools in Texas, California, Hawaii. Somehow I got sent to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Anybody ever been to Tuscaloosa? You ever see crickets that are the size of poodles? That's what makes Tuscaloosa famous, because they're bugs. They're huge, and it's hot. But anyway, we went to Tuscaloosa. We come back with our first dog. The first couple of years, we were pretty successful with the dog. It got to the point where, honestly, I was never home. The chief, if he heard of somebody that needed a dog, he didn't care where it was, he'd send me, which was great, except I was never home. So he comes to me along in about 1990, and he says, what do you think about getting another dog for our department? I said, Chief, I think that's a great idea as long as you send him to Tuscaloosa. Because if you send him to Hawaii, I'm going to be pretty ticked off. So he did. He sent him to Tuscaloosa. He came back with our second dog. And after about a year and a half of that, we started having little problems. And the little problems weren't big ones. The dogs just didn't look as sharp as they did before. They were still doing their job, but they just didn't look as good doing it. So the chief came to me one day, he says, what are we going to do about this problem? I said, I don't know. I said, you can either hire somebody from the outside to come in and train our dogs, or you can send one of us to school and become a trainer. He said, what does that cost? Now, if you know anything about Chief Dorsey, he's one of those guys that if he says yes, he means yes. If he says no, that's exactly what he means. You might as well just shut up and walk out the door. So I tried not to give him a chance to say no. I said, wait a minute. I said, what if we can raise $12,000? What if we can go to the community and raise $12,000? Would you send one of us to school? He kind of laughed at me and he said, if you can raise $12,000, I'll send you. Should have never said it. Should you, Chief? Should have never said it. Literally, I went across the hall, I made 2 phone calls. I called the Eagles Club and I called the Moose Club. Both of them said they would give me $6,000 apiece. The only question was who to write the check to. So I marched right back across the hall about 10 minutes later and I said, Chief, good news. I raised the money. He said, there's no way you raised the money. I said, I did. All I want to know is who to write the check to. He said, well, I told you you could go to school, and you could go to school. And I'm thinking, this is like February, right? So I know where I'm going. I know he's going to send me to Tuscaloosa. But at least Tuscaloosa is going to be a little warmer than Ohio in February, right? Yeah, it would have been had he sent me in February, but he didn't. He sent me June 1st. Thank you, Chief. So I came back with this education. I had to decide, what am I going to do with this? It's a valuable education. Am I just going to train our 2 dogs, or should I train dogs for other departments, or what should I do with this? So I talked to my wife, and we decided we were going to buy 12 acres out in the country, build a house and build a kennel. We put up a sign, we're going to train police dogs. The first year, I think I trained 2. The second year, maybe 4 or 5. But it's grown since then. Like George said, we've got 404 police dogs out there now throughout the United States. The only state I don't have dogs in is Michigan. And the only reason why I don't have dogs in Michigan is I don't like Michigan. I don't see no blue jackets in here, so we're safe. The real reason is Michigan State Highway Patrol have trained their dogs for free for 60 years. So obviously everybody in Michigan goes to them. We have retrained a lot of their dogs, but I've never trained one from start to finish. Tonight we got a little show for you. But before we do the show, I want to talk to you a little bit about narcotics work. Okay, everybody seems to have kind of an understanding on how we do that, but I think you're all going to be really surprised on actually how we do it. To train a drug dog, you must understand that the dog cannot come in physical contact with a narcotic, or it will kill him. It will not hurt him, it will kill him. Okay, so if he can't come in physical contact with it, how in the world are we going to teach him to find drugs? We just stick it underneath his nose and say, hey, Charlie Brown, smell this. And he goes, find it, okay? He goes, go, let's go, right? Now, how in the world can we teach a dog to find drugs? Any ideas? I'm going to give you a big hint. Don't Albert Einstein this. You know what I mean by that? It's a dog. The first thing we have to do is teach him what he's looking for, right? So how are we going to associate the odors safely so we don't kill him? We're going to have to put the odors inside something that's safe for him to play with, aren't we? How about a piece of pipe? Can you bring that up here for me, Mr. Johansson? This is an example of what we use as a narcotics toy. As you can see, it has a very tough exterior. The dog can't bite through this, but it's hollow, which means we can put the narcotic inside of here. There's small holes that's drilled in this, which is going to allow the odor to come out. So we will put marijuana, cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine inside this one pipe. We will tease it, and we'll throw it. The dog will run out there and pick it up. What's he going to pick it up with? His mouth, right? If that's in his mouth, what's he breathing out of? His nose. Every time he takes a breath, he smells the odor of narcotics in that pipe. And it doesn't take him an ungodly amount of time to figure out, if I find that odor, I get to play with Daddy. And that's the only reason why he does this. We cannot make him do this. He has to want to do this. Okay? Don't you think we would confuse him by putting 4 different odors inside this pipe at one time? We think so because it would confuse us. When we smell a hamburger that's got a lot of onion on it, what do we smell? Onion, right? A dog's nose does not work that way. He can actually differentiate between odors. In other words, he can smell multiple odors at one time and identify each and every one of them individually. Now, some of you are sitting here going, that's not possible. But I'll prove it to you. How many times have you ever tried to give your dog a pill inside a hot dog or a piece of cheese? What are you laughing for? It works once, right? He eats the hot dog, swallows the pill, and you go, thank you, Jesus, no more fighting with you, right? Until the second time. And then he eats the hot dog, spits the pill out on the floor, and says, thank you, can I have another? How in the world did he do that? Anything that goes in, on, or near his nose, he smells. Even if it looks like he swallowed it whole. He still smelled it. And he knows from the first experience that this hot dog is really good, but I don't like that part that's inside of it. And it's in there again. So he eats the good part, spits the nasty part out on the floor. That's how good his nose is. So I do not confuse him by putting 4 odors in this toy. What I do is shorten my training time. What used to take me 9 months now takes me a fraction of that. How long do you think it takes to teach him 4 different odors just by playing fetch with a toy? Again, be realistic, it's a dog. 6 weeks. Anybody else? How many? 30 days. How about 4?
Wow.
4 days I can teach him what he's looking for, the odors that he's looking for. How? Because he's doing exactly what he wants to do when he wants to do it. I'm not making him do nothing. As far as he's concerned, he's playing. And he loves to play fetch. If he doesn't love to play fetch, I can't teach him to do anything. So it's pretty simple, really. It's not Albert Einstein stuff. We pick a dog that's nuts about playing fetch, and we let him play fetch. And he learns his odors. Now the next thing I have to teach him is to tell me when he finds it. How can he tell me when he finds it? Bark. Bark's always the first answer, but bark's not a correct one. And I'll tell you why. The first time you let him into this building, he's going to take about 4 steps in here and go, yep, you're right. Whoa, 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 whoa. That's great, son, but can you kind of narrow it down? I don't need him to come in here and say, you're right, Dad, there's drugs in here, see you later, I'm going back to the car. I need him to come in here and show me where they're at. So barking won't work because it doesn't encourage him to pinpoint. What would encourage him to pinpoint? Wagging his tail. Boy, that wouldn't be a very good one because he does that all the time.
Lay down.
Sit. Sit and stare. About 5% of the dogs are taught to sit and stare. What are the other 95% of the dogs allowed to do? Scratch and dig. Okay? Scratch and dig dogs are allowed to scratch and dig. Now, how are we going to associate the scratching and digging with this game of fetch? Because I have to associate it. How do I do that? Dig a hole and let him watch me? Hey, Charlie, watch. Yeah, see how I'm doing this? No. You could, maybe, but no, I don't. While we're playing the fetch game, I'll take the toy away, I'll drop it, and I'll stand on top of it. The first thing he's going to do is bark at me. Hey, fat guy, get off the toy. And when he does, I'm going to ignore him. After a very short period of time, he's going to get mad. And when he gets mad, he's going to start biting and scratching at my feet. The minute he bites and scratches at my feet, I kick the toy runs away, he picks it up with what? His mouth. If that's in his mouth, what's he breathing out of? His nose. Every time he takes a breath, what's he smell? Drugs. Again, it doesn't take him an ungodly amount of time to associate scratching and digging equals this game starts. It didn't take Mr. Johansson long, did it? Thank you, sir. How long do you think it takes to associate scratching and digging equals we play this game of fetch? Not long is correct. How long?
2 days.
1 time. 1 time. Again, how? And again, the answer is it's what he wants to do anyway. I can't make a dog scratch. If he scratches and digs, I know he'll scratch and dig for it all the time. But what if he doesn't scratch and dig? What if he comes up to me and I'm standing on top of it, he just stares at me and bumps and move. Move! Come on! Move! Move! That's a dog I know will work because he's very attentive, he wants the toy. But I also know he's not going to scratch and dig. So that's a dog that I teach to sit. Bring him back in, and instead of putting the toy on the floor, I hold the toy up in the air. The dog's head is looking up, where's his butt? Down. As soon as I say sit, it plants on the ground, the toy takes off. We play the game again. Right? But the sitting dog takes me more time. Time is money. That's why 5% of the dogs are taught to sit, and 95% of the dogs are allowed to scratch. Scratching's free. Make sense?
Yes.
So in other words, we let the dog tell me what he wants to do when he wants to tell me he found drugs. Why fighting? Make sense? The last thing I have to teach him is the hardest thing I have to teach him. This is where we start butting heads, and he don't like me so much. He has to slow down and work with me. These dogs work, like Doc says, about 20 miles an hour. Do I look like I can run 20 miles an hour backwards?
No.
Not on a good day. Okay? Not on my best day. So he has to slow down and work with me. Why? Why do I care? Why couldn't I just open up the door, kick him loose in here and say, hey, Charlie Brown, when you find it, let me know? I could, couldn't I? Sure I could. Why can't I? Were you listening at the beginning of this?
It's drugs that kill him.
What if the drugs are over there in the cabinet? Okay, and I'm standing over here. The dog goes over there in the corner and starts scratching and digging at the drawer. What's likely to happen? The drawer will open. Do drug dealers package their drugs and things that's safe for my dog to play with? No. What do they package it in?
Plastic.
Nobody should know the answer to that question. You all should be sitting there going, no.
We've seen it on the news.
Have no idea. So, before you all get in trouble, it's plastic. Does it take much for a dog to bite through plastic? No. So if he's not working with me and I'm not close enough to stop him, he opens up that drawer, he dives in there, grabs a hold of a plastic bag full of cocaine, comes out with white powder all over his head, and he dies. It doesn't make a lot of sense to buy him, train him, just to kill him the first time I take him out. That's why he has to learn to work with me. When we bring these dogs in a little bit, you're going to see them work drug work. You're going to see the handler presenting where the dog should search. The dog is going to stick his nose there and say, yes, Daddy, it's there, or no, Daddy, it's not. This is a team sport. It's not an individual marathon. The handler has to be part of the game. If he's not, it's going to result in a dead dog. Guaranteed. Okay? Any questions?